Okay, Genesis 11. In Genesis 11, tells us that all mankind was unified by one language. They could understand each other, and they had a large group of them move into the best land, the area of, which is modern-day Baghdad. That's where Babylon was. And when they got there, their leadership sat down and had a conversation. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone, the scriptures say, and they used tar for mortar. Now, why is that significant? Well, what this tells you here is they had developed new technology, and they planned to use that technology to their advantage. And then in verse 4 it says, Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens." Now, why did they want to do that? Well, various reasons. There had been a worldwide flood, and they experienced God's wrath. It would make sense to get a building that was high up. Maybe they could survive another flood. But also, this tower would have been for religious purposes. It would have been a temple and an effort to unite the people religiously. And what are they attempting to create here? Well, it's a self-sufficient, unified, godless, man-centered society. And what's motivating them? Well, we find that in the text. It says, "So that we may make a name for ourselves." It's all about them. It's all about exalting themselves. The word that we find here in Scripture is pride. It's all about their pride. And then it tells you what's driving them. They say, "Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." They're motivated by fear. They're insecure. They fear being scattered. They're trying to create strength through being unified in this godless, man-centered society. Now, nothing has changed today. In this country, you go back to the 50s, and we've seen a concrete effort to reshape society by those secular and religious lost. We even had recently President Obama, who in one of his campaigns had a slogan which was "Build Back Better." Build back better. It should have been called "Build Back Babel." Build back Babel, because that's what his agenda was. Now, what's the objective of this present Babel that we're living in? Well, it's just exactly like Genesis 11. They're trying to bring people together, all of the lost, all of the wandering people, all of the depressed and anxiety-ridden people, those who live in fear, the socially isolated, the angry, the frustrated, those who have pointless lives. They're trying to bring them all together and build a man-centered, godless world revolving around a Babel-like temple. And how has it happened so quickly? Well, back to Genesis 11 again. They were able to communicate, use their technology to get together now globally and try to build a global Babel. They have a ability to communicate through this technology. And technology is not a bad thing. It's just that man is a bad person. And he'll use that technology, as they did at Babel, to try to create a godless world. But what's at the center now of this Babel project. They've got a god now. They've been developing a god. That God's name is AI. AI. A god made by the hands of men, in the image of men. And like all man-made gods, AI is not a blesser. AI is a taker. He's a taker god. Going to take our land for the data centers. Going to take our electrical power, the power of this god. Going to take our water supply to keep the thing cool so he doesn't overheat. Going to take our freedom and our rights. Maybe getting everybody on some kind of electronic register, and AI will be monitoring us in case we have some kind of hate speech, because he's going to take our free speech. This God's going to take our medical treatment, because now you're not going to go to a doctor, you're going to go to AI for your consultation. When AI thinks your time's up, you're done. You'll just not get that treatment. AI is a taker. AI is after our money, our assets, our kids' minds. And some people think if it gets enough power, AI will enslave us and eventually decide we're just useless eaters and take our lives. But remember this, AI is built by man, and man is an idiot. So we're building a super idiot to worship. That syllogism is logical. The major premise, mankind is an idiot. The minor premise is that man is building a super idiot. The conclusion is correct. The conclusion is correct. And you become like that which you worship. So if they worship AI and he's a super idiot, we're going to have a whole nation full of super idiots. And you think it's bad at the moment? It's going to be getting worse. Someone says, well, this is all very scary and I'm afraid. Well, I kind of understand. But one thing the architects of the new Babel leave out of the equation, and they always leave out this minor detail, it just seems to pass by them, is it's God that they oppose. It's God that they're taking on. God who spoke the universe into existence. God who created man from nothing, all the way down to the cellular level. Have you seen the complexity in the cell? What kind of power does he have? That he speaks universes into existence, that he creates beings like us, that DNA, the information in it is mind-boggling. And when God did it, he did not break a sweat. And they forget God. They forget God. As the people in Genesis 11 forgot God too. Do you see that they forgot who they were dealing with? They took God out of the equation, and that's a serious mistake in your math. So what's God doing? What's he doing at this time as we build, or as the unbelievers build a new Babel? Well, we can be tempted to think that God has abandoned us. We talk things like they kick God out of schools. Have you ever heard anything more ridiculous than that statement? You would have to have went to stupid university, graduated, number one in your class, got a PhD in being an idiot to even mention that phrase. Kick God out of schools? You're going to kick the Creator out of anywhere? You think, can we say to God, oh, right, you're out? And he's like, okay, well, you don't want me anymore. That's what they said at Babel. And they were wrong then, they're wrong now. The leadership brought all these lost people together. They harnessed their technology. They got their big project going. There was a lot of action. The city was being built. The tower was being built. It was all energetic. You could see things happening. It looked like they were gaining ground, but they were going nowhere. The new Babel is in the same situation. They're going nowhere because God decided to stop it. And He will stop whatever man plans to do today. Our God has changed. Try Him. Try Him. Ask the Nazis. They tried. Ask the communists. They had to go. Islam, He'll bury them. He hasn't changed. We forget who we worship. We forget, and men forget who they're dealing with. In Genesis 11, God wasn't standing at a distance. God stepped into their mass psychosis, and that's what we're facing today. Mass psychosis. If we think that AI is going to save humanity, and God brought their madness to nothing. The psalmist says this, Psalm 2, and I paraphrase, the kings of the earth rage against the Almighty. Why do they? They stand against His anointed, and He who sits on the throne laughs at them. He's laughing. That's what God's doing. Oh, AI, hi cute, hi funny. What a joke. That's what God does. He laughs. He laughs at them, then He terrorizes them in His wrath by speaking. Psalm 2 tells us. We've been praying for rain recently, and God has blessed us with rain. The problem with not having any rain is you don't have any water. And you can't cultivate the fields. You can't eat. And with AI, what happens if they don't have any water? It's good night to him. He's got, bye. Bye, false God. For goodness sake. Who do they think they're dealing with? The Almighty provides everything. And if He shut the water off, this whole thing will collapse. And then when they built the Tower of Babel, God didn't come in with massive earthquakes and plagues of locusts. He just confused their speech. They couldn't communicate. They thought they could, but God changed that. And He's doing the same today. Listen, this is a section from a book on intersectionality and postmodern feminism. The basic conceptualization of intersectionality is simply put is the appreciation of how different oppressions rooted in ostentatiously discrete sets of violence, symbolically and physically, social relations can intersect and the condition of the lives of whole groups of people. Unconscious race, class, cisgender, heteronormative biases, valorization of double, triply oppressed experiences of womanhood. It's gibberish. It's gibberish, and they're feeding this into AI. So not only do we have a super idiot in the forming, we got a super idiot who's gibbering, who no one will be able to understand. You need a PhD in gibberish to understand any of that nonsense. Don't worry about this thing. Don't worry about the direction the world's going. Don't worry about the new Tower of Babel. The whole thing's collapsing in on itself already. But God's not only in the business of tearing down this Babel project. God's got His own eternal project that men forget about. And He's bringing that project to pass. Now, this is not scripture. It's more tradition. And we always want to handle tradition as tradition. It's not authoritative, but it's in Jewish sources, which gives it a bit of strength, ancient Jewish sources. And then Christians, in Christian sources too. They say that when they were building or mining the stones for the Solomon's temple, when it was being built, Solomon had them mine outside of the city. So when the stones were brought in, they were just put together in like a jigsaw piece. There was no sound of tools being used at the temple. Probably a reason for that as well. They were warned against making anything that looked like an image, so they didn't want anybody in there putting images in the temple. But so they mined the stone, and then they brought them to the Temple Mount where it was being built. And one stone, they say, arrived, and it was an unusual and irregular shape. The builders didn't know where to fit it, and they assumed that had been a mistake made and it was unusable. So they rejected it, and they rolled it down into the valley of the Kidron Valley, and they left it there with the rubble. But near the end of the construction, they needed the final cornerstone. The cornerstone is the number one stone in the building. All the weight of the building runs into it. It lines up the rest of the building, and it gives it its strength. It's really what holds it up. And they eventually discovered that the stone that they had rejected, that they had cast in with the garbage, was the exact stone that they needed. And so, the stone which the builders rejected became the chief cornerstone. Now, who could that be speaking about? Well, Jesus of Nazareth, right? Because the Jews rejected Jesus because they didn't like the look of him. He didn't fit the description that the Jewish architects of the people, or they thought they were the architects of the people. He didn't fit in to what they were looking for, and they rejected him. And God rejected them. God rejected them. The architects of this modern Babel, they do the very same thing. They reject Jesus of Nazareth because he doesn't fit with the plans that they have. But God doesn't care. God doesn't care what they think. He doesn't care what an individual thinks about Jesus. You don't like Jesus? Sucks to be you. Find out. Find out when you reject him. Find out when your life collapses around you. Find out when your family's going to pieces. Find out when you're breaking down who you've rejected. You've rejected the one that's holding you up. Regardless if you're a believer, every blessing comes from him. All of the health, all of the money, all of the food, all of the career, all of the business, all of the healthy children, all of the society that we live in, it's all built on Christ. And if they reject him corporately or individually, they're crashing down. God has got a plan to build his temple as men build the temple of Babel. And he's going to get it done. And what God is doing here is he's bringing all the lost, the wandering, the people who look at their lives and see it all as pointless, the depressed, the anxiety-ridden, the socially isolated, the lonely, the angry, the frustrated, the hopeless. God is bringing them all together in his temple, built on his cornerstone, on Jesus Christ, and on like the plans of mankind. whose work is futile, whose work is temporary. This temple that God's building is eternal. Is eternal. Let me wrap it up for you here. Do you remember you were a kid, you went to the beach? Maybe not South Dakotans. Oh, right enough. I'm sure there was sand somewhere to be had. I grew up on the island of Ireland. It's all beaches. It's all beaches. I remember when I was a little kid, if I hadn't got grounded, that is, if I hadn't done something, they kept me at the house. I was one of those kids where they kept me at the house and said, he's not going. That happened many a time. But if somehow I had dodged a bullet, maybe one of my siblings got blamed for something I did, which was always a strategy. I would tell on everybody. I was a teller. I didn't keep silent. It was him. My brother Billy did it. My brother Neil. But if I went to the beach, I loved building sand castles. I loved that as a kid. You know, you get the sand where it's just right. It's not too dry. It's not too wet. You have your little bucket. You put the sand in there. You get it all down, and then you flip it over, and it holds together nicely. And you start with your towers, and then you're building your walls, and you're really getting into this thing. You're digging tunnels, trying to get water to come in there. Loved that when I was a kid. Loved it. And then you would do that all day and keep everybody away from it because my brothers would kind of destroy it. Then there'd be a fist fight. Get back to it again. And you've protected it. You've guarded it. You've kept it all day. And then your dad said, right, everybody in the car, you're going home. But what about my sandcastle? It's not coming with me. And then your dad said, but sure, the tide's coming in. The tide's coming in. And you'd watch it lapping in there slowly over about 15, 20 minutes, and you'd see your sandcastle getting wiped out. Men are building their sandcastles. That's what's happening at the moment. When you see it, look at it. It's a sandcastle. Looks impressive, looks nice, it's entertaining. It looks all very, very cutting edge. But the tide's coming in. The tide's coming in. The tide's coming in not only individually, but corporately. That tide is coming in for you if you're not a Christian. You've built a castle made of sand. And castles made of sand, as Jimi Hendrix say, tumble into the sea eventually. It's all coming down. But it doesn't have to be that way because God is building a temple. He talks to the Ephesians about it. Peter mentioned it in his letter. Christ said, destroy this temple, I'll rebuild it in 3 days, and he's building it. He's building it, and that temple of God is eternal. And how do we know he's getting it done? Because there's objections to this. There's objections to God carrying out his plan. It doesn't look that way. Look around you today. Look around you. We got people here from Colorado. We got people here from Ireland. We've got people here who were born in Belgium. We've got people here in all different kinds of age groups. We got people from Vietnam. We'll even let people from Pennsylvania in. How did this happen? And Lemon. We got 2 people from Lemon. We've got a majority of Lemonites here. Lemonades? Is that what? How'd this come together? Well, it's not because we're giving people free stuff. We are going to eat together later, and our food is delicious and lovely, and I'm looking forward to it. We always have an abundance. But we're not here to get fed today. We could eat at our own homes and enjoy a meal. We're not here because you're getting any political power from being here. Not here because you're getting a step up in the ladder in your career or economically. We're here today when the majority of us needed to be in bed. You had a long week. You're exhausted. You're worn down. A nice lie in a movie and some popcorn and doing nothing. It's maybe what you needed. We're here today because God's getting his work done in this world. We're here today because of Jesus Christ. Because the temple of God is being built, and we are the hard evidence that his work continues. But not only here, not only in this town, in the next town over, in the next town over. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Go around the globe. And people are coming together for one reason. As living stones being built in to the temple of God by the living God, and it's all based on one man, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus the Christ. And that's what the supper brings us back to today. The supper brings us back to the foundation of God's work in the world, which is Christ. And in light of this, what do we do? Well, first of all, stop worrying. It doesn't do you any good. Don't be fretting about anything men do. It doesn't do you any good. We've seen it all before. We've seen these architects of mankind trying to build their Babel, and it's all come to nothing. So don't fear it. Don't fear AI. It's a false god. It's an idiot. And remember this, the living God is laughing. So we ought to be joining in. We should be laughing too. We should be laughing too. The supper brings us back to the great cornerstone, which is Jesus Christ, rejected by men, but chosen by God. And it's a simple choice. Either you line up with this idiot AI and mankind's futile system, or you line up with Jesus Christ. It's not simple. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. There's a world system and there's God's plan. But keep this in mind. God's eternal temple is eternal. It's not going to be washed away in the tide. We're going to line up with Christ. That's what we're doing. We're going with Jesus on this one. Don't care what your mommy says. I don't care what your brother says. I don't care what all your friends say. I don't care if they laughed in the street because we're a Christian. We're going with Jesus. We're standing with Jesus. And let the rest of them do what they do. And we, as Christians, are a part of this holy temple. That means that we are a part of God's work. And we're unshakable. That means we're immovable. That means we're indestructible. And we should be above all confident to move forward. Because everything else is going to get washed away when the tide comes in. But because we're a part of the temple of Christ, we are immortals. Immortals. Immortals.